Hello everyone, Venris here. Welcome to this final SFO Grimhammer 2 Kings and Raiders update overview. But before we start, I'm not alone today. Nathan from the Great Book of Grudges is with me, and he will guide you through all major changes. So I'm giving charge to Nathan now, because he has so much more experience in making such videos than me. For now, of course. Hope you all enjoy what we were working on those last months with the team, and enjoy the video.
The Skaven will receive an update in Kings and Raiders. Nothing too drastic in the form of a complete overhaul, but a few of the playable Skaven clans will receive some changes in an effort to diversify their playstyle. This is done in a lore-friendly way to show off the differences between each major Skaven clan, with the Skaven-specific parts of this update mostly focusing around Clan Pestilence, Clan Rictus, and Clan Moors. Let's begin with Queek Headtaker and Clan Moors. Straight from the beginning you will notice that Clan Moors has new units. These are known as Moors Clan Rats, mace-wielding infantry in both shielded and unshielded variants. An armor-piercing frontline unit for the Clan Moors front line, with their unit cards being created by the person behind the Better Unit Cards mod. Scar Bloodtail, the right paw of Queek Headtaker, is a new legendary hero implemented for Clan Moors. A melee combat hero which is best suited to be around his master as much as possible. Scar offers a wide variety of bonuses throughout his different skill trees. Many of these bonuses will focus around the buffing of units such as Clan Rats, buffing up Queek Headtaker himself, and the usual generic bonuses which will benefit any province that he may be in. While it is very possible to have Scar join other armies, it is highly recommended to keep him alongside Queek Headtaker. You will also notice a new currency only available to Clan Moors. This is Queek's Ore, which will focus around a brand new mechanic only for Clan Moors, known as Trophy Heads. Very much like the Tomb King special mechanic, the Trophy Heads mechanic will focus around giving you bonuses depending on which tab you choose to spend your currency on. Do bear in mind that as you keep using this mechanic, the price of doing so will also increase. Now let's take the time to look at Clan Pestilence. Straight from the beginning you'll notice a new resource. Pox Samples is a new resource only available to Clan Pestilence. These Pox Samples will give you a variety of different benefits, as you can see on screen right now. However, that's not all they're being used for. A bunch of new technologies have been added to the tree for Clan Pestilence alone. Before anything, here is where you can find out how to get more plague samples, which is simply by spreading plagues on your own armies and provinces. Through the use of these pox samples, a bunch of different benefits can be acquired. Of course, you will need to spend some time acquiring these pox samples, but as your plagues start spreading more and more constantly, this shouldn't be too much of an issue. These are 3 separate branches, each offering their own benefits, and will eventually tie in together in the form of unlocking the Vile Tide Comes, a rather powerful final tech. Now let's take the time to focus on Clan Rictus. Firstly, we can check out Tretch Craventail, who's had a plethora of new skills added to his skill lines. More specifically, a skill tree which focuses around the buffing of Skaven slaves. Now, while that might not seem like the most powerful of additions, bear in mind that these bonuses affect all armies faction-wide. This will make Skaven slaves much more useful, and increase their damage output faction-wide. A new building has also been added in for Clan Rictus, which will not only help in the defense of provinces, as this provides rather strong provincial bonuses, but also once again focus on buffing up the use of Skaven slaves. Of course, a new mechanic has also been introduced to Clan Rictus, but this one does not focus around any other sort of currency. Instead, this is introduced in the form of another technology tree branch, where the only requirement is to go out and do some damage and occupy other racial capitals. This will give the player incentive to branch out and move around in the Mortal Empires campaign. Now please bear in mind that in the Eye of the Vortex campaign, only half of these new technologies are available, as of course only a certain amount of those buildings are actually in the Eye of the Vortex campaign too. Tretch will also benefit from a new friend, Rickrock Sliceblade, a new legendary lord character which can be recruited as from turn 1. This character is a melee-focused lord as can be expected. He acts as a sort of bodyguard to Tretch Craventail, and would benefit from being close to him in terms of provincial movement. His special skills will focus on a variety of different things, but the main thing of note here is that the character can boost up the damage capabilities of the Storm Vermin. Of course, with the recent release of the Twisted and the Twilight, some balance changes have come into effect for the Skaven. Here we can see that Frotz also received a few new skills, but so have the Chieftain and the Packmaster. You'll notice a change as soon as you begin your campaign with either Wulfric or Frog. There has been a rather hefty update to the Allegiance to the Gods mechanic. Each of the gods now grant more powerful boons. It's very much dependent once again on the god that you choose to worship, which will then provide different benefits of course. But with the blessings now being more powerful, it will feel as if the dark gods themselves are actually lending their aid. The construction tab has been updated radically for both factions. As you can see here, most of the units have been moved to the left hand side, where again most of the units now fall under 3 specific trees. The other buildings which were associated with these units are still available however. This is because they've been changed to work in a different way, whereas these buildings now have a new purpose. Instead, these buildings will now provide a plethora of benefits, be it faction-wide in the form of increased damage, reduction of upkeep, increase of unit capacity, or even just provide benefits in the form of extra growth, more defense for local armies, or even just increase the strength of a garrison. A new generic human lord is now available in the form of the Marauder Pathfinder. This was a much needed range lord for the Norscans, especially for players who tend to favour javelin based armies. Some character benefits is being able to boost up the capabilities of your own ranged units, whilst also providing debuffs towards enemy warbeasts. If you want to theme your armies around hunting parties, the Pathfinder is probably the best way to go. A new monstrous generic lord is that of the Fimir Meyra, a melee caster hybrid which has access to the Lore of Fire and the Lore of Shadows. You can pretty much kit out this character the way you want to specifically. The character has different paths to take in the form of skills. You can choose to make it a very powerful spellcaster, or a very terrifying warlord which will boost up the capabilities of its fellow Fimir. Unit upgrades will feature for the Norscan forces in the form of gifts, where the Chaos Gods will offer gifts to the Norscan forces in an effort for them to be able to do more damage in their name. Early into your new campaign, you will be greeted by a new dilemma. This is introduced to give the Norscan player a little bit of an edge early on, and there are 4 different types which will offer a wide variety of benefits for a decent number of time. Each of the choices vary greatly and can focus more around your specific playstyle if you so wish. It's very much dependent on the player itself more than anything. The benefit will last you for a decent amount of time, so think before you decide to pick. The Gift of Tongues is a new mechanic introduced for Wulfric the Wanderer, where he is able to challenge an enemy and insult them in their language, despite the fact of not even knowing that language. By challenging your enemy, you will automatically declare war on them, and there are benefits to be earned for defeating said enemy. Of course, you're more than able to hold your tongue, but where's the fun in that? You're Wulfric the Wanderer, you might as well do as much damage as you can. This is more in relevance to people who have not played SFO Grimhammer before, especially as the Norscans, but Wulfric the Wanderer has access to shipbuilding in the same way as the Vampire Coast Lords, which means that Wulfric the Wanderer is more than able to become, well, a wanderer. Sorry for the bad joke, but hey, it fits here. As Wulfric challenges and defeats more and more legendary lords, he will gain access to a new resource. That in turn will allow him to make use of the new God's Gifts mechanics, where he will be able to spend a currency only available to him in an effort to get bonuses for himself, his tribes, or his Norscans. The Troll King will also have access to his own special mechanic. This is based on warfare and acquiring a special resource. As Frog and his forces fight against a multitude of different races, missions will be issued to him in relevance to the races that he is fighting against. These will then provide a vial of knowledge. These vials can then be used in the Technology tab, which will unlock different bonuses. The vials themselves are race specific, so that of course means that if you want to get every single bonus, you're going to have to go out there and do damage to a multitude of different races. It's a rather interesting mechanic for Frog, and it will give the player a lot of incentive to go out there and fight with as many different races as possible. Norscan outposts, even the minor ones, have been made a lot more useful now, where a large variety of different bonuses can be acquired, not just for the province they're in, but also all provinces. The benefits offered by outposts now will make you want to see that they're well defended, or at least a few of them, which will provide you with enough bonuses to make your armies that much more terrifying. Frog himself will also take great benefit from these outposts, as it will provide him with the ability to recruit all new Norscan trolls, river trolls, stone trolls, and even a bile troll. These were specifically added for this patch, and will allow for players who wish to play full monster armies to easily do so. Let's start off with the generic Tomb King Lord, which has seen an update in the form of a few new skills. These have been introduced so you can specialize your Tomb Kings. You can choose these skills to buff up your armies or even your economy. It very much depends on your specific playstyle and what you want the specific Tomb King to be able to do. Minor vanilla heroes such as the Necrotect, Tomb Prince, and so on have also received a few new skills, nothing as much as the Tomb King, but enough to make it noticeable. A new generic Lord character has been added in the form of a Lich High Priest. As can be expected, this is a spellcaster Lord, which was desperately needed in my opinion for the Tomb King's roster. With this character, you'll have access to different winds of magic, so you can choose if you want to specialize the character in the Lore of Nehekhara, the Lore of Light, or the Lore of Death. This takes out the randomization from the generic Lord pool. Should a Lord appear in the pool with a specific trait that you want with a specific Lore of Magic, now you're able to do so without a problem. The Tomb King Baroque, a rather popular mod created by Chaos Robbie, has also been implemented into this mod. In truth, there are a decent number of Tomb King units being implemented in this patch. However, since most are faction specific, barring the Baroque, I figured it'd be best if we left them out until we did our faction focus videos. Arkan the Black has been updated with the addition of new skills and also the updating of his current ones. While he indeed is still considered a Tomb King character, there is a bit more focus now towards the darker side of things, more in the form of a servant of Nagash than an average Tomb King. To further add to the feel that you are a servant of Nagash with Arkan's faction, some extra units from the Vampire Count roster has been added to Arkan specifically. But bear in mind that because of this, the Chariots and Carrions have been removed from Arkan's roster. If you're very used to using Chariots as a Tomb King player, this is going to change up your playstyle a little bit. Of course, not much will change once you start getting the big monsters, but having access to a Mortis engine now can be quite beneficial, especially with your early chaff. Arcann's technology tree has also been updated, where you'll be able to bestow spells from the lore of vampires towards your characters. Bear in mind that with some cases with these new technologies, you'll be able to unlock one spell but lose access to another. It's just one of those things where you don't want every single character having access to the whole lore. Settra the Imperishable has been given a new faction-specific currency known as Divine Riches. This currency is acquired through combat, where after every battle you will acquire 5 treasures, up to a maximum of 25. Now every 25 turns you'll be presented with a dilemma, which will have you spend some of your Divine Riches. However, a big focus for this is the following that's about to be shown on screen. Settra has seen an absolutely massive addition to his technology tab, where it's all centered around the Divine Riches. These technologies will focus around dominating of the other races, where you'll be able to get many benefits when fighting against them, however massively reducing your diplomatic relations with the races as a whole, meaning that you will start seeing more and more enemies. There are many special benefits that you can get from this system, including many new abilities which you will be able to use against your enemies. Of course, you'll need all the help you can get if everyone's going to start declaring war on you. But you are the King of Kings, so they shouldn't really be too much of a problem. While we're at it, and we will cover this in much more detail in a future video, but the pseudo-legendary Lord characters, those available as Dynasty Lords, have been given a bit of an update, where now each of them will act as their own proper legendary lords in a certain sense. They won't be as powerful as a legendary lord, but they will indeed be more powerful than the generic lord choices. Queen Khalida has a new mechanic known as Vengeance, and as you can see on screen, it provides a rather large amount of different bonuses. However, you will notice that they're only on 0s and 1% at the moment. These buffs can be improved. However, to do so, you need to defeat some rather powerful vampire lords, as they are encroaching upon your borders, and Khalida hates vampires, so you need to take them out. Through the technology tab, you are able to trigger these vampire invasions. Defeating them will give you access to more vengeance, and with vengeance you'll be able to unlock certain new buffs and so on. However, there's something important to note here. Be careful triggering multiple vampire invasions, as I've learnt myself through testing that yes, you can indeed trigger multiple ones through a series of turns, and the problem is that they might get too powerful and do too much damage. And also be warned that the longer you take to destroy these vampires, the stronger they will become. At the beginning of your campaign with Grand Hierophant Khatep, you will be presented with a dilemma, which will give you 4 different options. All of these options will vary greatly depending on which one you choose. They'll all provide rather strong bonuses, but also some minor negatives. This dilemma will appear every 40 turns, so you can plan ahead and see more or less what works for your current situation. And yes, there has been an update to the Mortuary Cult, only for Khatep however, which will give him a wide variety of benefits to be able to be used either in the battlefield, regenerate his armies, or even increase their movement range. Khatep will also benefit from a 25% discount on all things on the Mortuary Cult, and will be able to use gold to create new canopic jars. Lastly, of course, the Grand Hierophant has also seen an update to his technology tree. A few technologies here and there which will provide faction-wide benefits, but on the top part, you'll also be able to unlock new units. However, it will cost you a decent amount of canopic jars. And you will also have another prerequisite, such as constructing certain buildings. However, in most cases, those would be buildings that you're generally going to construct anyway, so it's only a matter of time until you're able to unlock them. The Waystone resource, which was added in a previous SFO patch, has also been included with Draika and the Sisters of Twilight. Draika herself will be able to obtain Waystones by raiding. This resource can be used on technologies added in exclusively for her. The technologies themselves will vary. Some will buff up your monsters and dryads, others will buff up your heroes, where a decent amount of them seem to focus around Draika's deep-seated hatred for the elves, where you'll be able to do more damage against them, more post-battle loot, and so on. These buffs work against the High Elves and the Wood Elves, which works rather well, especially since the High Elves later game do become quite an empire. Draika has of course been granted a new unit for her roster, that of the Malevolent Dryads with bows. Now, before anyone starts going that this is unlore friendly, they are indeed mentioned in lore, and yes, it's only 1 or 2 sentences, but it is mentioned in lore that you can get dryads with bows. While it might look like an Age of Sigmar thing, it's not, so don't you worry. Now, these are an interesting unit. Of course, they are treekin, which makes them rather resilient in close combat. Forest spirits with vanguard deployment, resilience and small splash damage. 150 range, which is fairly decent, and all around pretty good stats. They are dryads after all, so if you want to go with a full treekin / monster build, you can totally ignore other elven units. It's actually a shame that a unit like this was not implemented officially, especially for a faction like Draika, which has had a large majority of elven units stripped from its roster. The unit will have all that can be expected, such as the upgrades and so on, so you can use it and synergize with your army as well as you need to. The Midwinter Rites mechanic, which was originally released in a previous SFO Grimhammer update, has been changed to only be available to the Sisters of Twilight. These are of course implemented as rights only available to the Wood Elves originally, but now only them. They'll act in their own specific way in the same way as rights do for every other Warhammer 2 race. A matter of importance to note here, however, is that they'll not only require gold, but also Waystones, and you will acquire Waystones with the Sisters of Twilight by engaging in warfare, so if you want to make use of these rights, you need to be aggressive. Other than that, it's pretty much as you can expect. Boost your economy, boost your growth, boost your damage, and so on. The Heralds of Tallinn and Vor's Champions, 2 units previously available in an SFO update, have now been moved to be specifically only for the Sisters of Twilight. The Heralds themselves are fast-moving melee flying units, which can be used to dart in and out of combat, whereas the Vor's Champions are greatsword infantry, which are there to do as much damage as possible. Think of them as a reskinned Hagenef Executioner. Durfu has a complete technology section only available to him now. The technologies themselves are based around the various different locations found within Orion, with each different region providing different bonuses. Some may reduce the upkeep of units quite dramatically, whilst others might bolster up the capabilities of other units. There is of course one tech which is locked completely until you get access to every other tech, and it provides rather large bonuses. However, there is an important thing to note here, where your diplomatic relations will be reduced massively with all factions. So once you do get access to this, do be prepared to get into a lot of warfare. Grove Guardians, a monstrous infantry unit that was introduced for the Wood Elves in a previous SFO patch, are now locked to Durfu and Durfu alone. This is of course the sword variant which many people are already aware of if they've played SFO before, but there is also a new variant known as the Grove Guardians with bows. This is not just a monstrous infantry unit, boasting an incredibly large range and very powerful missiles. They are pretty much the Wood Elf equivalent to a bolt thrower. Well, they can move faster and do a lot more damage in melee too. These units are incredibly versatile, and definitely something you'll want to recruit if you plan on playing a Durfu campaign. Orion will also have his own unique technology tree, which represents, well, a tree. This will of course provide a variety of different bonuses, whether it is for armies, settlements, and so on. However, it is important to note that many of these sections in this tree are locked behind the growth of your own Oak of Ages. As you level up the Oak, you'll be able to gain more and more bonuses. Lastly, Orion will also get an additional few skills. These are known as blessings, where he can get a different amount of benefits from the various gods of the Elven pantheon. These are rather powerful buffs which can be upgraded up to a 3rd rank. This is how waystones are generated for Orion and will mostly provide benefits towards himself and his own army.
Thanks everyone for watching. If you want more information, in the video description you can find full, very long changelog. Remember that update is going to be released today on traditional stream with me talking about future plans. Big thanks to all that support and help. Without you, that mod would be only a dream. And of course thanks to Nathan for covering this update. No cheerleaders, sorry. Venris out.